Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I am Luke Crothers, and welcome to another episode of Escaping Through the Lens. Hopefully, I'm hoping this time we'll be able to get it in a much more decent audio sounding quality. What better film to talk about than the film that is inevitably kicking off our DC month in the build up for Zack Snyder's Justice League. As always, I'd like to welcome back my co host, Ray.
Hello.
And the film we're going to be discussing today is Wonder Woman. I'm going to let Ray start off with general thoughts on this before us, because I feel like she's she's going to have the most to say about this.
Oh, it's not a good idea letting me start this one. I am not happy with this movie. This movie I was really hyped for. I thought I would absolutely love it, but I didn't. I hated it. I thought it was awful. And coming out of the last few movies that we've done where I really enjoyed it, this has just I've done a complete 180 and I hate this movie and I'm not happy to be talking about this and I don't like it. I don't know how to express how much I don't like it.
Yeah, it's definitely a strong opening. So I'll give my general thoughts on it as well. See, I enjoyed this film. I liked it more than I didn't like it. I'll as I put it as that. I'd say the first two acts are entertaining with a few nitpicks towards them, but much like with John Wick 1, the third act is kind of where it starts to lose me. But like more so with the Wonder Woman's third act compared to like John Wick's third act, because at least in then I was still I was still as it I was more engaged with John Wick's third act than I was with this one.
Yeah, I think the movie lost me from the get-go. I have very strong feelings about this movie, and they're all hatred.
Just had it like the first like shot of like zooming in on planet Earth and like Gal Gadot's narration is like, oh, can't stand this.
Yeah, I wrote my notes, my notebook, and as soon as I saw it opening, I was like, nope. I threw the book, and I was out, absolutely rage quit.
That's it. That's actually a possibly interesting thing to start on. Where at the start of the film did you realise, oh dear, this isn't going to be my kind of film?
Well, I started having some little problems during the start whenever they were showing the kind of the Amazons fighting and what they're wearing. I had a big problem with, and kind of like I enjoyed the scenery. I will say the start of it, I really enjoyed it for the scenery, and I thought, oh, okay, so there's good things and bad things here. I might enjoy it, and I was going into it with a lot of optimism. So I thought, I'll give it a chance. So after that first little introduction where I wasn't really a fan. It just kind of got worse and worse. And what I have is good points about the start, and then it just slowly kind of my notes descend into madness where I just fall into a spiral of absolute hatred and despise this movie so much. So I think it lost me definitely just after the start, basically, where Trevor appears and whenever they start going on the mission to the kind of like the more human world, that's where I started having all my main problems with it.
So it's like as soon as Trevor entered the scene, that just kind of threw you off.
As soon as the man showed up, you know how it is. As soon as he showed up, I was like, nah, I'm out. Maybe it's just Chris Pine. Maybe it's the movie. Who knows? I'm interested to hear the good points about it though, because I want to hear it from your point of view, and maybe I'll go, oh, it's not as bad as I thought.
Okay. Yeah, so the way that I see this, I was kind of in the same mindset towards like the beginning of like really being engaged with the visuals, because one thing I feel like I should like get out of the way so I don't keep on falling back on this. The visuals in this film are gorgeous.
Oh yeah, they definitely are. 10 out of 10 for that. I will
Yeah,
say that's a good point.
and while only produced by Zack Snyder, I can see a lot of his trademark attempts, trademark techniques towards like the film, mainly with a lot of the slowdown, a lot of the sort of I don't want to say muted colors, but gritty colors, but
Yeah,
still but still visually striking. That's
Yeah.
where I feel like the film shines more for me. And again, I don't know how much influence Zack Snyder had on it with the director of this film, Patty Jenkins, but the visual style they did go for was amazing.
Yeah, I like the visuals of the scenery, but I think another thing that I thought was quite pretty was the outfits in the start. I really liked them, but then I had a problem with them as well. This is my main problem with the start was basically the lack of outfits. And I looked into this afterwards because I was really interested to see you can see it was heavily based off kind of Romanized armor. And I looked into this afterwards about all the different types of Roman armor, and obviously they were quite accentuated, and they had all this like gorgeous armor to try and prove power and strength and all this kind of stuff. But a lot of the breastplates and armor things, even for women, because there were some formed for women, weren't the same as what they had in this movie. And when I was watching it, I was thinking, yeah, those big breastplates and those outfits look really impractical. But then I thought, oh, it looks like it could be based off like historic armor, but it wasn't, and that really irritated me because they obviously just had that in there for visuals, for oh, let's make some attractive women and put them in skimpy outfits and have them run around for a couple of hours in them. And I thought that was like, I tried my best to prove, oh, I'll look it up and see if it's historically accurate. Maybe I'll enjoy it. No, I didn't. I thought it was awful.
That's interesting because I didn't really have as much of a problem with what the Amazonians were wearing because I don't know, like maybe it's because I don't really maybe it's because I didn't really research into the sort of, as you said, the Roman esque designs, and the fact that a lot of these are based on like a lot of the characters that we focus on from that island are sort of based on like Greek mythology or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, the costumes I didn't really have a problem with or even notice. My problem that I had with the Amazonians specifically, which I feel like is more of a nitpick, is the fact that they were Amazonians that have trained for hundreds, if not thousands, of years.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them were taken out by a bunch of German soldiers with rifles.
Yeah. True. I see that kind of passed me by because I thought, oh, they've never seen guns before. It's, it kind of makes sense. But yeah, it is a bit of a strange concept. I also think whenever they were fighting, the outfits annoyed me more whenever you had just so many shots of them flying through the air and you just get all these awful shots of their legs and underneath them, and it was all very sexualized, and like for me to watch that, it wasn't enjoyable for me.
They seem for me to watch for me to watch that. I'm trying to
You
make sure
just
if I
shouldn't
can.
say you loved it.
I'm not gonna say that I loved it because that's just gonna make me sound like a pervert. But no, I just no, I liked I liked the slow mo shots.
Mm. I went into it thinking, oh, I finally get to see this great female superhero. It's gonna live up to all the men. It's gonna, give me the same effects that the men had because they don't have all these shots and skimpy outfits and uncomfortable visuals. Yet I was excited to see a female superhero that didn't give me all these uncomfortable visuals, and it still did, and I didn't enjoy it for that aspect in particular.
Fair enough, I suppose. If we're talking about the female led superhero herself, do we want to talk about Wonder Woman herself?
Yeah, I want to hear what you think on her first.
Gal Gadot brings a lot of energy to the role, definitely.
Mhm.
Like I feel like what she does, like with her commitment, even if maybe some of the choices with the story may not be 100%, solid, she
Yeah.
still gives it 110% with what she does, and that is definitely commendable for the character herself. I thought of a lot of comparisons to a lot of those stories that you mainly see in, like, I don't know, maybe like Disney princess films,
Yeah.
where they're entering where they're entering unfamiliar territory and the kind of fish out of water kind of scenario.
Mhm.
Although I'm glad that they didn't focus on that too much, as it means to say, look, okay, we can do the fish out of water sort of thing, but that we could also get the plot moving.
Yeah. I will say with the whole plot and that aspect, it was a very interesting film. But the story itself and like how you described it, how they didn't focus on the fish out of water, and what they did focus on primarily was really interesting and really entertaining. And I will say that's a big thumbs up for the movie from me.
Yeah. To talk about the fish out of water scenario specifically, it's the scene after she's been like trying on all sorts of different clothes, and then they have to go to the office in London.
Yeah.
There's one particular scene is when they walk down the alleyway, and then they end up getting sort of cornered by German spies.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them shoots, like tries to shoot Steve Trevor, but then Diana blocks the bullet.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a callback to the 1978 Christopher Reeve Superman film.
All right.
Yeah, it was a scene when Clark Kent and Lois Lane were in an alleyway, and Lois Lane was about to be shot by a gangster, but Clark Kent just sort of stood in the way and took the bullet. So when Lois Lane ran away, trying to look for help, and the gunman ran away, just like trying to hide, you just see like a shot of like Clark Kent just sort of opening one eye and then holding the bullet in his hand.
Nice. I didn't notice. I didn't know about that. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's not like something that they had to do, but they did it as a sort of callback to say, I guess it's a way to say, like, look how far we've come in terms of hero films.
Yeah, yeah, and like the switch of gender roles of how she was in the protecting role instead of the other way around. It's like, oh, we saw him do it, a girl can do it too.
Yeah,
That's quite nice.
the
Yeah,
role the role reverse situation, I kind of like.
yeah. I feel like that's one of the only good points I have about her actual character and portrayal of being a strong woman. Because for me, whenever Steve Trevor shows up and they leave where she's from, I don't understand why she's obeying a man she just met. Like she follows his every move apart from one scene where she like defies him. But also like she's so feisty, but she's still submissive to him, which I don't understand. And I was reading up on this about what other people thought about it, and there's a quote from an article that I read, and it says, um, about her following around a meathead who has no skills apart from moderate decisiveness and pretty eyes. And I think that's very, very true. I find his character so awful, and I find her following of him and submitting to him to be quite strange. I don't understand it. She spends most of the movie getting dragged around by Trevor, who is adamant that his mission is more important than hers, and that irritates me so much.
When I watched this film with my sister, she too found it weird how Gal. No, I nearly said Gal Gadot. I meant to say Wonder Woman. Hold on. She found it weird how Wonder Woman has essentially spent her life being raised on an island of women, but then suddenly the first man that she sees in her life, I wouldn't say immediately falls in love with, but gets an attraction towards.
Yeah, I actually have notes on this where before that kind of attraction even set off, I was writing down how like if she falls for him, it's awful because she knows nothing about what men are like. It's not in her nature to fall in love with a man. It's not in her nature to have any kind of relation towards the male species. It's so unrealistic for her to do that. I found it really odd.
Which I think they try to give like some explanation as to maybe trying to lead us away from the idea of them falling in love, which was when they were on that boat. They'd first left Themyscira.
Yeah.
I'm glad I got the pronunciation right on that. Yeah, I don't remember what it is specifically that they said on the boat, but they tried to hinted sort of away from the idea of them falling in love. I guess to kind of, I guess to maybe like throw us for a loop.
Yeah. I find the whole concept of them falling for each other really strange. 'Cause at the end, he says to her, "I love you," and that they knew each other for like 3 days and they had a handful of conversations. It's just so unrealistic. I find it such a pointless plot point. Why couldn't they have just created a really good dynamic team between them and they work together and they can be friends, they can be whatever, but it just doesn't need a romantic element. Why does a superhero movie have to have a romance element into it? I want to watch a good action superhero movie. I want to know about them, not about the relationship to some man they just met off the street. Like, I'm furious about these points in this movie.
The relationship side towards sort of interaction with each other is definitely their weakest part of like those two together.
Mm-hmm.
My idea as to why she constantly follows him around, I think, comes from this isn't just the first man that she's met, but it's also the first human, the first non-Themyscirian. I want to say, is that a word? I don't know.
We'll go with it.
Yeah. So because she's very unfamiliar of the world, like outside of their sort of protective barrier, and the fact that her mother has basically warned her about how dangerous and as how cruel like the humans are, and how they don't deserve her. I guess it kind of makes sense for her to follow someone who has more of an understanding of the area than she does.
Yeah.
In order to understand where it is that she needs to go to find Zeus.
Yeah. See,
No, not Zeus, Ares.
Ares, yeah. Points like this still don't justify it for me because I find that she obviously is greater than humans, more powerful. She's just 10 times better in every aspect. And everything she's been taught and learnt and raised to do, everything that's in her nature gets thrown out the window when she follows around this man for 2 hours. She pointlessly submits to him, goes along with everything he wants, when she is better than him. She is the hero of the movie. She should be doing all this stuff. Why is she following around this nobody? Like, if it was Superman who just met the first, okay, say he didn't know what humans were and he's met a human, he's not going to follow them around and submit to them. He's still going to be the hero, still going to be the best. We still know that he is greater than humans, where in this it reduces her to lesser than humans when she's not. I find that so infuriating. I don't like what they did with her character.
Which I feel like if we're going to bring up Superman into this, I feel like that's kind of what makes the Superman / Lois Lane relationship work better, because it's not the first human he's ever met. He's been around humans for quite a while before he bumps into her.
But she's so much greater than humans. We shouldn't have this powerful being reduced to trailing around behind a man who tells her what to do at every point. I didn't like it.
Which, given what the message of this film is trying to say,
kind
of like it shoots itself in the foot a little bit.
Yeah, I read so many articles about it to try and see, am I crazy or is this actually quite a good film for the whole female aspect of it? And everything I read basically ripped it apart, and everything I read that didn't was written by a man.
I feel like, I mean, obviously, like, I can't speak from a woman's perspective.
Yeah.
But I can say that maybe the shining example of how this film shows empowering female superheroes is probably the scene when she walks onto No Man's Land.
Yeah. So that I was really excited for, and I watched it and I thought, oh, this is really good. But the fact that the other guys at the back were also shooting, and also kind of she stops with her shield and like deflects the fire, and then she has to wait for them to take out the gunman so that she can proceed. So she basically needed them to save her so she could advance. And I feel like, make a strong character who can handle herself. Don't have them come in and save her and then she can continue on her mission.
I mean, she could technically handle herself because, she was able to hold up the shield against gunfire. and
It was pointless.
but as we saw from like the beginning of the film, the Amazonians are vulnerable to bullets.
True.
So I guess that was just sort of example of sort of her just doing all that she could in that situation without being shot.
I feel like they could have written the situation better where she could have overcome that. Why did they have to put an obstacle in her way that she couldn't overcome and she needed men to save her from? If they wanted to make her strong, they would have put her in a situation that she could handle and overcome completely herself. And you'd go, whoa, she is really strong. She is really great. She doesn't need humans. No, she obviously, because we know she is superior, give us a situation where we see that she's superior. Prove to us what we already know.
Yeah, I could kind of see that now.
I'm very angry.
Also, I feel like this has been like the most angry and sort of like ranty that you've been towards a film since Skull Island.
Oh, definitely.
I feel like in the context of showing a more powerful female superhero, that kind of option would make sense. In terms of the story, it wouldn't. I feel like it would actually kind of harm the story because, hear me out on this. If she was strong enough to tank the gunfire from the soldiers, which is able to let her walk properly across no man's land into the German trenches, what's the point of the other characters?
They could, if they had have written the other characters better, they would have had a purpose. Make them more interesting so that they don't need to be there solely to shoot down some gunman. That can't be their sole purpose in the movie.
I could admit the trio that followed like Steve, Trevor, and Diana around, like those like that group. I could admit they weren't like the best.
Yeah, I feel like they could have been fleshed out a lot more.
Definitely. Yeah, they definitely could have been fleshed out a lot more. They feel like the trio. They feel like the trio stereotypes.
Yeah, like it could have been. They could have been reduced to one character, and if they had to put all of their traits into one character, that would have been a really interesting character. But they didn't need to make it 3 characters that are a bit watered down, I think.
Yeah, which I feel like they try to do something with the Scotsman Charlie, with him being sort of afraid / experiencing PTSD when it comes to like trying to shoot people.
Mm-hmm.
But they never really explored that.
Yeah. I liked the chief. I thought he was quite humble and quite chill, and he was a good contrast to Diana and to Steve Trevor and to all these really intense as they could be.
Yeah.
But I think he was a nice contrast in the movie. He's a bit more mellow than the other characters. He stood out to me a lot.
Yeah. The Scotsman Charlie. I only recognise him from one other film, which leads me to believe that he probably hasn't had like the best track record in terms of casting before Wonder Woman, because I think the last film he was in was Michael Bay's Pearl Harbor.
Oh, I see. I've never seen that film, but that probably says a lot saying I've never even heard of it, so I think I get your point there.
I've seen like clips of it, as well as people basically point out everything that's terrible about that film. So yeah, I could admit, that isn't like the best film to come from in terms of like track record. Though I'm tempted to maybe give it a look. Like just so we can sort of laugh and rant about how terrible it is.
Yeah. Speaking of characters that we did kind of like, there is a huge plus for me in this movie, and that was Dr. Poison, Isabel, can't remember her last name. I adored this character. Whenever I first saw her, the visuals of, she was wearing like the green scrubs, but they were like cinched at the waist and made into like a dress, and I thought they've just taken a really creepy aspect of like Dr. Scrubs, made it pretty, but made it so creepy, but still feminine, and I thought that was really good. They didn't make her tacky. They didn't do what they did with Diana and put her in a skimpy cheerleader outfit and have her run around a field for a while. still gave her feminine aspects, but made it what she was supposed to be, and that was creepy and scary and a good villain. And the kind of artificial jaw that she had, I thought that kind of disfiguration really added to her character of being this like creepy, crazy scientist. I thought she was so cool. As soon as I saw her and her whole vibe with the poison, and she was a very smart character, a very capable character. She was the one they were all trying to get. I thought that she was probably my favorite character. I wanted to see more of her. I wish they had fleshed her out a bit more, maybe make her her own like super villains. I know they were trying to like soup up this other guy, the other like Nazi. He was kind of a big villain, and obviously Ares was a big villain in it. But I think if they made her herself the key villain for a movie, I would watch that all day long. That would please me so much. It would make this so much better. I loved her.
Wow, I don't really know what to follow up on that.
There's my positive take on the movie.
Well, that's the positive take. The rest of it's just gonna be all angry.
Downhill from here.
Downhill from here. That character. First off, I mistook the actress for Rebecca Ferguson.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know who played her. Do you know?
I think I looked it up like just to check if it was Rebecca Ferguson, and I can't remember the name of the actress, but basically it wasn't.
I see.
And I only really sort of know like that actress, like Rebecca, because I'd seen her in Mission Impossible Fallout.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yeah. Which, given that we're building up to Justice League, this isn't going to be the last time I bring up Mission Impossible Fallout. I'll just say that. But in terms of villains, I thought she was fine.
I liked her. I thought it was very nice.
I mean, she's definitely sort of intimidating with that, as you say, that artificial jaw.
Mm.
But I kind of struggled as to figuring out what her motivation was.
Well, I feel like it was just the same as every Nazi, because she was just a Nazi scientist. That was her core being. I feel like what was the other man's kind of drive, what was all the other Nazi soldiers' drive, it was all the same. It was just, win the war, make the best weapons, and that's what she was kind of doing.
Which I think they try and plant the seeds for some kind of development with her when Steve Trevor sneaks into the German party, to the German sort of gathering party, and he's sort of talking to her near the fireplace, and kind of gets her at her most vulnerable and gets her to admit that she just wants a chance to be recognized.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like they followed up on that.
That's what I mean. I wanted to see more of her. I wish they had fleshed her out. She was very, very interesting. That whole thing with the party, how did they not see the sword in Diana's dress?
I mean, there were. If you looked at like a bunch of the people that she was passing, there were a few people that gave her back sort of odd glimpse.
But they would go, "Hey, what are you doing with a big sword in your back?" Or, it's a big fancy party with all these very important people. You can't be carrying around a weapon in here. That's not gonna fly, is it?
Given that most of the people of London got used to seeing her walking around with her sword and shield, it wouldn't surprise me if people in the German party kind of sort of looked over that.
Yeah, I see what you mean, but it still got me when I watched it.
Speaking of like the scientist herself, the other scientist, the male scientist that she was working with, I just thought it was really bland.
Yeah, so did I. I feel like if they had deleted him and focused more on your poison, I would have been a lot more interested. But he was just kind of this souped up Nazi with like super strength, and that didn't really sit too well with me. It was
which we already got a better souped up Nazi in the Marvel universe, Red Skull.
Exactly.
Because it felt like the female scientist had like created this sort of special gas that can burn through gas masks.
Yeah.
But then she'd also invented this other thing that could make like this other random scientist incredibly brutally powerful.
Yeah. I wish they had explored that a bit more because I find the gas was really interesting. Why didn't they focus in more on having this kind of super weapon? I wanted to see more of it, more kind of fleshed out as an actual threat, because the attention of the threat is split between Ares and the poison, and I feel like neither of them really get the explanation that they deserve. Like, you understand why they're doing it, but to have a threat that the audience actually feels that is threatening, that's scary, they need to do this, there's a drive, there's a passion, there's whoa, they gotta save the world. I feel like there's no real feeling of that. There's no real sense of danger. It's all just kind of like, oh, we gotta get Ares and we gotta get this poison. Okay, let's go. Way.
Speaking of Ares, do we want to start talking about that whole aspect of the film?
Yeah, I liked the twist. I will say I was pretty bored.
Oh, I'm not in the same book as you, but go on.
I didn't like the movie, as you know. Well, as you should know, and my interest was kind of fluctuating throughout. And I found that when the Ares twist came up, I was actually a lot more engaged than I had been for most of the movie because it was interesting. I felt like something had happened. Like how whenever the end fights were going on, I have written here that it took almost 2 hours to actually feel like a superhero movie. And I feel like with that twist, it took that amount of time to actually feel like I was engaged in something interesting going on. So I did like that because it actually got me watching the film again.
That's interesting. Like like almost like completely opposite perspectives that we've had on it. Because you didn't like the film, but you liked the twist. I liked the film, but I didn't like the twist.
Right? Why is that?
So the story is centered around the idea that Diana gets the idea that maybe this great war that the humans are having with each other is caused by Ares.
Mm-hmm.
For a World War One story set in the DC universe, I can kind of sort of jump out of reality and accept that, but for me it feels for me it feels like a little too like far fetched. Which I originally thought when I first saw this that the conflict of this would be whether or not like Ares was involved, because Diana was completely certain that that the terrible behavior to come from humans came from Ares. That's why in that scene when Steve Trevor stops her from stopping this German scientist from setting off this sort of toxic gas bomb and basically killing an entire civilization in the village, she feels like maybe Ares has corrupted Steve as well to stop her from doing that.
Yeah.
Which leads to the scene of when she eventually tracks down the scientist and kills him, but then she realizes that nobody else is stopping. Everybody's still going through with their sort of evil schemes, and then it gets to a genuinely fantastically acted out scene with Chris Pine, telling that maybe it's just like the way that humans are, that there's good people in the world and then there's bad people in the world. And I would have liked the idea more if Diana, having gone through like the sort of mini conflict in her head of like, no, maybe like maybe it is Ares. If in that very moment she decides, you know what, human beings might be scumbags, but I'm going to help them out anyway. I feel like that would have created a more emotional sort of ending. But then, but then there's a twist within the twist, and then it reveals it was Ares all along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was my problem with it.
Yeah, I feel like I do agree, and I agree on pretty much the majority of that. I will say that the whole time I was watching it, I was waiting for Ares to show up just because I didn't want her to be wrong or to be crazy. Because we have all these superheroes that are the best, and they never lose, and they've got all these plans and missions to do. But for her to come out in such a big movie and to basically spend the entire time doing something completely unnecessary would have been a bit of a letdown. And I didn't want to see that. I was hoping so much that he would show up. So I didn't really mind that we had this twist on a twist, because I felt like he actually did have an impact on, why the humans were doing this, instead of them just being scumbags and her going, you know what, I'll still help them. I was happy that she did have more of a purpose than that.
Yeah, which
purpose would have been just nothing really.
Which given in that situation, you really don't want her to be wrong.
Oh,
it
yeah.
can't. That just goes to show, like you become like emotionally sort of invested with like Diana, because not only do you want her to be right in the situation that maybe it was Ares, but you also want you to be right. So in that instance, both you and Diana are thrown as sort of like thrown for a loop, just thinking, "Whoa, what the heck's going on?"
I think you've just blown my mind. Maybe I've just had a revelation that I was actually emotionally invested in Diana, because whenever I think of this movie, I think that I didn't really give a care in the world about the movie, but now I'm thinking, maybe I did.
Yeah, it is. It's like it gets you thinking, doesn't it?
This is the episode of realizing things.
Yeah. But yeah, that was the twist on a twist was what really threw me the wrong way, because the third act basically felt like it was the ending to a completely different film.
Yeah.
In my books. Not to mention Ares, the god of war, built up as this sort of grand, intimidating sort of monster of a warrior, and it turns out to be Professor Lupin.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I didn't mind that. I thought it was a nice contrast, because he did look so unassuming. I didn't really mind that. I liked the visuals whenever he was walking through all the debris of the buildings and the planes and stuff. And the armor, the metal was kind of sticking to him. I thought that was beautiful. I was really, really intense. But to see, as you said, Professor Lupin inside that mask was a bit uneasy for me, but for me it kind of made sense.
I don't know. See, like, I like David Thewlis as an actor. Like, he is he is an incredibly talented actor, but I guess when you've seen him in the roles that he's in, because I've seen him not only as a Professor Lupin, but back when I was towards the end of high school, we were tasked with doing an Inspector Calls.
Oh yeah, oh no.
And a task we were given was to watch the recent, at the time, BBC adaptation of the story, which had David Thewlis as the inspector. So when you see him in these sort of in control, sort of smart looking detective kind of roles, you kind of get like you don't really sort of imagine him as Ares, the god of war.
Yeah, I agree there. Yeah,
like I wouldn't call it Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor bad.
See, maybe controversial, but I didn't mind that. I really didn't mind that, but
neither did I. But I understood why people had a problem with that.
Yeah,
because in that context, it is. Like in that context, so David Thewlis as Ares the god of war isn't as bad as that, but it's still noticeable to the fact where I couldn't really take Ares that seriously, because especially when his helmet got knocked off, and you sort of left with this sort of intimidating figure. And then the head of some sort of like snobby British man.
Yeah. The stubby British man was a bit awkward. I find that Ares, god of war, a big powerful god, takes on a human form. Why would you decide to look like that?
Yeah.
Any human form, why are you gonna look like this man with a mustache? Why? I mean, the Amazons themselves, I find this point where I was looking at all the characters and they all look like they could be Victoria's Secret supermodels. They all for me, I wanted to see, whenever you're growing up and you're loving superheroes and comics and all this stuff like I did, you want to see a reflection of yourself, but to watch this movie of Wonder Woman and go, oh, finally, like a strong female character, I'm so happy, I want to, like relate. But no, they're all walking around in, very, very, very short skirts that aren't even skirts. They're about an inch long, and they're all look like Victoria's Secret models. You don't really get that kind of thing, so I thought that was a downfall for me. But they were like gods, and they were all beautiful. Why did this god decide to be a ginger man with a mustache? I feel like he really got the short end of the straw here.
I would say in terms of the sort of skimpy costumes that the Amazonians are wearing, I would say it isn't filmed in as obvious as a way to point out how skimpy they are compared to maybe like Michael Bay's Transformers films. Not sure if you've seen any scenes from those.
I've seen them, yeah. I will say, yeah, that's true, but I feel like I don't need a comparison to make up for it. Like, oh, it's fine because it's not as bad as this.
But obviously, it's not perfect. It's not perfect. It's not perfect. It's just not as bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
While talking about Ares, I'm going to bring this up because my sister said that I should make sure that I bring this up. So I get why Ares needed to be in the third act of this film. It's to give the film the superhero third act brouhaha.
That's why I feel like it took 2 hours to be like a superhero film. I agree, yeah.
Yeah, and I get that, and I get like why that has to happen like specifically, but again, that ending, while it gave us the third act superhero clash that you come to expect from these films, it felt like the ending to a completely different film, considering what the 2 acts before it were building up. Like maybe if you up the ante from the scene where she walked across no man's land and then sort of raided the village and took down the Nazis and took down that church. If you up the ante from that,
yeah.
You have not only a solid finish for that film, but you also build up the idea of in the second film of like maybe this wasn't Ares, but he's still out there. Ares is coming, and then build up the hype for the second one, which you'll be excited for because you've seen what they've done with the first one, and be like, oh, okay, what are they going to do with the second one when Ares arrives? That's what I feel could have been better, or. That's just what I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like they tried to have a reveal with Ares. Like they'd been talking about him, and then there he is. He's at the end. Here's the big reveal. But there's having a reveal, and then there's having something just come out of nowhere, and he came out of nowhere. If they had had him, when she's going across no man's land, maybe she sees like a shadowy figure in the distance, or like. I don't know, like a vision of him or whatever, or maybe there could be, I don't know, just any trace of him at all where you go, oh, is that Ares? Or what did she just see? Or what's that? And then you're kind of a bit more anticipating it, rather than they're just talking about him, they're still talking about him, they're still talking about him, he's not here, boom, there he is. That's, for me, I'd rather have a little bit more of a teaser, a little bit more, so he is around, or isn't he? Who knows? And then, he is at the end. Rather than just, he showed up, finally. Where have you been the whole time?
Which, the final fight itself, it starts off with something that really, really annoyed me. Because the whole point around Diana sort of taking her weapons with her, not only is she taking a shield, but she's also taking the God Killer.
Mm-hmm.
This supposed plot-relevant weapon that is able to take down gods, except when it isn't, and it's broken almost instantly by Ares.
For something to have that like disastrous effect at the end, where this big weapon was meant to help her, didn't work. They built it up far too much. Like at the start, we're talking to her mother about it, and then all the other times where she goes and takes it, and she's like, "Oh, I'll be fine. I got the God Killer." Blah blah blah. It was such a letdown. It was really unfortunate.
And then it leads into one of those like story. It leads into one of those like messages that has been done to death, because we find out that like Diana was like the daughter of Zeus or something.
Yeah.
And then it's revealed that she has the power to kill Ares. So maybe it wasn't about the god killer, but there was the power that was in her all along.
They're still beating that old dead horse. That's basically what this movie was let's make, from my point of view, quite a boring film, and then we'll put every twist imaginable and every kind of plot point that you can shove into a final act in the final act.
Yeah, that's why I didn't really enjoy the third act.
Yeah. I agree. It's I don't think the pacing was very good, I will say. I didn't like the pacing in the movie at all.
Where specifically? Was there like specific acts where you felt like the pacing did work, or was it just all throughout?
All throughout, like I feel like when I was watching it, nothing really happened in the first two acts, apart from stuff that I didn't like. And then we got such an explosive ending where everything kind of came out. It was like, well, why didn't we get a little bit of this, a little bit of a teaser, a little bit more to draw me in? Because if I was watching that not for having to film this podcast, I would have turned it off halfway. But if they had to put in little bits to keep me interested, keep me going, just speed it up at times a little bit more so I'm actually engaged, that would have been good. But it was just slow, and then a big final, and that was it.
So it's like you get to one scene in the film that you really don't like, you're about to turn it off, then you remember the John Wick podcast where I said Deep's the divest, and there's like, I've got to be there for that.
Yeah, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there to see how mushy our brains become in the next episode. Yeah.
Which I thank you for persevering, even if you didn't like this film.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to have more angry comments to make on the Instagram account, so I definitely need the content.
And maybe you could upload like a rant video to the Instagram.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Which, speaking of which, do you want to like announce the Instagram to our listeners?
We finally have some social media accounts. It is ETTL, Escaping Through the Lens _podcast, and it's on Instagram, and we post stories about behind the scenes episodes and all the news on upcoming episodes and how the show is just going about itself. There'll also be posts and everything to enjoy about movies and the show itself. So go follow it. And we have polls, we have quizzes, we have stuff on the stories. So interact and hopefully you'll have fun.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to get a load more listeners into this.
Yeah.
To bring up one final note on this. Actually, before I get into that, one character that I think we brushed over, but I think at the same time the film does that. Steve Trevor's assistant, played by Lucy Davis from The Office.
I liked her.
That was a pleasant surprise. I think it was.
I do always enjoy a little bit of light comic relief in characters like that, and I thought she was very lovable and very wholesome. I did enjoy watching her. I feel like that was more of an enjoyable thing to watch than all these very serious characters that had missions and they were going about all this superhero jazz. I'd rather just watch this little woman who was going about her day and she was being very sweet, and I liked her.
Yeah, I think she also. I think it also led to like one of like my favorite lines from this film. It was when Diana was asking what an assistant is. And Lucy Davis's character said, I basically go where he tells me to go, and I do what he tells me to do." Then Diana says, "That sounds a lot like slavery."
Also, what Diana does for most of the movie, I literally have written down, please let her be independent, but obviously I was wrong, and the movie has her follow him around. So I feel like that character of his assistant was correct, and a little bit of foreshadowing for Diana basically being a slave in the movie.
Which, speaking of how Diana basically does like a lot of what Steve Trevor tells her like to do. My guess is that the scene that made you the most angry in this film was probably after they spent time dancing in the middle of the German village, and they hook up.
Oh. Oh, don't get me started.
Well, it's like I could feel like the rays sort of building, like you know when like Godzilla like builds up like the radiation, then you see like his tail glowing. I can see the tail glowing as it builds up.
Yeah. Oh, it was so pointless. It was such a pointless kiss. I didn't like. Oh, that. Yeah. Oh, I don't really know what else to say about it. I just really, really didn't like it. It was so unnatural for her, and it kind of just ruined it for me.
Yeah.
I'd rather see her be independent because you have all these other superhero films where, they save the world and they're doing these action things, and that's great. But why does Diana have to have a love interest, have a love plot? Why? No, it didn't sit right with me.
So the one, as the one big thing that I wanted to bring up at the end of this
Hmm.
was about how this compares to both other DC films and like
Hmm.
other female-led superhero films.
Yeah.
So I'll start with the DC films.
Hmm.
So at the time of this film's release, way back in early 2017, I want to say,
Hmm.
uh, DC had a very controversial track record.
You too.
Yeah, yeah, they had Man of Steel that was controversial to many. Batman v Superman was incredibly controversial to the point of a sort of fandom civil war.
Controversial to say the least. That
Yeah,
movie is a whole rant for another day.
which we will get to.
We will.
And funnily enough, that'll be our 10th episode.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Hit me.
so something to mark the occasion.
Nice one, nice one. That'll
Uh,
definitely be an interesting one.
yeah. Then after the mixed response of Batman v Superman, we got Suicide Squad,
Oh,
which
Suicide Squad.
yeah, that just wasn't well received at all.
No.
So for Wonder Woman to come out and at the time bring us, at least from what I saw, a sort of really solid DC film in terms of maybe say its story.
Hmm.
I feel
Yes.
like that's what made people like, hold it up in such a sort of high regard, which made it better, which sort of boosted its morale, considering it was female led.
Yeah.
From where we are at right now, now that DC has started to become a lot more consistent with its films,
Hmm.
in terms of like what it's made, they've started to have more hits. Like obviously, Joss Whedon's take on the Justice League, that was its own failure. But then
Hmm.
after that we got Aquaman.
Yeah. Oh, it was really good.
Yeah, which that
Yeah.
was when I went to see Aquaman. That was my favorite DC film until I saw Shazam.
Oh, I see. I haven't seen Shazam, but I loved Aquaman.
Yeah, and then towards the end of 2019, Joker came out.
Hmm. I have not seen that either yet. These are all films I need to go watch.
And they've recently had a little bit of stumble with Wonder Woman 84,
Hmm.
which I haven't seen that, but I've heard a bunch of critiques towards it.
Oh no, they haven't done it again, have they? It's another Wonder Woman film where I'm actually filled with rage at every point. Oh. But it's not that I dislike the concept. I really like the concept, and I feel like there is a lot to love in
Yeah,
this film. And I understand why a lot of people who would miss and just generally ignore because they want to just experience it as a superhero movie. The like kind of female downfalls of this film. I feel like it is enjoyable for those kind of people, but for me, that's kind of I went into this with so much hope that it would be a great female-led film. I had a lot that let me down, but overall, it wasn't bad. It wasn't too bad.
yeah.
That's me being nice, but we'll say it wasn't too bad.
That is fair enough. But going back onto so now that we've had more consistently good DC films, I definitely say that Wonder Woman can't exactly be held in regards as like the best anymore. But to
Yeah.
me, it is still a fundamentally enjoyable as a superhero film, at least for me, from its first two acts. I'll definitely say that.
See, not having seen a lot of DC films, apart from like Suicide Squad and Batman vs Superman, those kind of things, that doesn't fill me with a lot of hope to go and watch the rest. If you're gonna say that that Wonder Woman was the best, that's kind of
what was isn't anymore. I'll say.
Yeah, but those that came before, it doesn't give me a lot of hope for the like Man of Steel or any of those movies.
Well, as I said, Man of Steel and Batman v Superman were either love it or hate it films, and I loved both of those films. I'm just talking from like a general sense of like when it came out. More people could get behind a Wonder Woman than they could agree with like the previous films. That's what I meant.
I will say I didn't love Batman vs Superman, but I'm not one of these people that hates it. I think it was pretty good. It's like a 7 out of 10 for me. It wasn't bad.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of comparing it to other female led superhero movies. I've looked up a list on like IMDb of like female led superhero films, and I remember like saying this to my sister while we were watching it, is that you guys haven't had it easy.
Oh no. That's why I was so excited to go into this and hopefully have a good experience, but I didn't. But from just being obviously female and loving superheroes and comics and all this kind of stuff, it was really nice to see a Wonder Woman film. That's why I had so much hope, because we don't have that much. We have definitely had it rough. That's kind of why I had so much expectation, and I want more. I want more good female superhero movies, but they are just very hard to find.
Yeah. I'm gonna bring up something that my sister said that I like completely agree with, but you won't really be able to like add anything to it because you haven't seen Captain Marvel yet.
Not yet, no. But I have so much hope for that film. Yeah. I am so excited.
She said Captain Marvel had a better approach, but Wonder Woman was the better film.
Ah, I see. Yeah. See, the thing I didn't like about Wonder Woman was the poor approach to the female-led superhero film. So I do think that a film with a better approach, I wouldn't mind a story that's lacking. I feel like I would maybe enjoy it just for the impact of finally seeing a fully fleshed out, strong female character. It might make it up for me. I have a good feeling about Captain Marvel, but I don't want to jinx it, so maybe we'll not have as much hope as I did for Wonder Woman.
Well, I mean, you never know. I mean, you might end up seeing in it what I didn't.
Maybe. Yeah. Need to give it a go, I guess.
Yeah. Which now that I feel like we've talked about everything that we can about that film, we can. I'll give my closing thoughts first. Having heard everything that you've said about it, I could definitely notice like more problems with it.
Yeah.
But I still think, at least for like its very first two acts, it is still like a very good film. Which, while it is noticeable for having flaws, I still think is a good example.
Yeah, I feel like it's a good basis to kind of figure out, well, we didn't do this with the female superhero, we didn't do that, we can kind of build off this, build off that. It's a good starting point to kind of, it's a good learning curve. But also I feel like, from my point of view, I'm kind of opposite, where I've kind of given some negative thoughts and you've kind of took them on board. I've kind of taken on board your positive points, and I kind of think, yeah, this movie wasn't as bad as I thought. There's definitely a good chunk of it that's just simply to do with the whole female aspect I don't like. But the movie itself isn't a bad movie. It's a relatively good movie. And I think thinking back on it, I probably now enjoy it more than I did.
So it's like we've both learned from each other.
Yeah, this is the power of escaping through the lens. We're learning things, becoming better people.
Maybe the real Wonder Woman was the friends we made along the way.
Oh yeah. true impact of Wonder Woman. It's not feminism, it's friendship.
It's the friends. It's the friends you make along the way. What if Ares wasn't the god of war? What if Ares wasn't Professor Lupin, but the friends we made along the way?
Yeah. I think that definitely sums up the impact of this movie. So what it's done to us.
But that concludes the first step into our DC related month.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. This is a really good start. It's only up from here.
Yeah, I know for certainty that I'm really going to enjoy talking about Man of Steel next week.
Oh yeah,
I'm very interested to hear your first impressions on it.
Mm-hmm. I can't wait to see it, and I can't wait to hear what you think. Having previously watched it, it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah. So, thanks as always for joining me for this, Ray.
No problem. I have enjoyed this and got my anger out.
So you did enjoy the film, but you enjoyed this.
Yeah, this has been a good ranting session. I feel like I'm in therapy. This has been a good time.
Yeah. So with that said, I will end things as they are now. So I will see. We'll see you guys next week. This has been Luke Crothers and Ray Blakely recording for Escaping Through the Lens.